All right, hello and welcome to this episode where we're going to talk about the idea of pain versus suffering and really difference when it comes to OCD and anxiety and recovery. For those that don't know me, my name is Matt Codde, and I'm the founder of Restored Minds and the creator of the AAA Response. And if you are struggling with OCD and anxiety, or you're looking for help with your journey to recovery, I have some links right down in the notes that will get you started. You can head over, you can check out my book. We have a 12-week program. You can also head over to restoredminds.com to get started with the resources that we have there for you. And also, if you could help us out real quick and like and subscribe and click the notification bell, that is really going to help the algorithm of our stuff and in making sure this gets seen by as many people as possible. So we'd really appreciate if you take the time to do that. And so with that all said, when it comes to pain versus suffering, it's important that we distinct, what those are and define what those are and really understand how they play a role in this process, because a lot of people assume that OCD and anxiety is a form of just suffering. And in transparency, it's like when you're caught in that is what you're experiencing. It's just as true a form of suffering as one can experience. But the reason that the suffering occurs is because of our resistance to the initial pain. So pain is a singular event in many cases. And so when it comes to OCD anxiety, it might be the physical sensations that you experience in your body. It may be the intrusive thoughts that you experience in the mind. And this experience is painful. Now, the suffering comes in when we resist the initial pain. So when we try to stop, when we try to neutralize, when we try to avoid, when we try to control the initial painful experience, that is actually what creates the suffering, because our resistance leads us to do the compulsions or the safety behaviors that then form the loop. Now, the loop is the true form of suffering when it comes to OCD and anxiety. The experience of intrusive thoughts and anxious feelings are relatively normal human experiences. If you talk to the majority of people, they've had those experiences at some point or will have them in their life. And so I would make the argument that those are actually normal, painful human experiences. And it doesn't mean that they're bad. When we perceive that they're bad or they're unacceptable or that we aren't allowed to have these painful experiences, we become resistant to them. So we then engage in behaviors to try to stop them or not make sure they don't happen or whatever we do. And those behaviors can take on various forms. And that is what creates this OCD and anxiety loop. And when you really get this idea, what you begin to understand is that pain is unavoidable in life. It is just part of life. Pain is something that we are going to experience in one form or another. Doesn't mean, but suffering is truly a decision, right? And if you're suffering right now, it's not about blaming yourself, but what you need to ask yourself is, what am I doing to contribute to the persistence of this suffering? Because if that loop is going in your life, then the reality is that you're engaging in some type of safety behaviors, some types of compulsions that are feeding the loop. And it could be the mental rumination, it could be the analyzing, it could be the reassurance, it could be the coping, the escaping, the avoidance, reassurance, whatever it is. But you're doing something that is keeping the loop going. And that loop is where the suffering is. It's not in the pain, it's in the resistance to the pain. And our ability to let go and get rid of our safety behaviors and actually learn how to experience painful events when they happen and not be resistant to them, paradoxically, creates way less suffering in our life. And I always talk about how everything on this journey is one grand big old paradox in my experience. You know, the more and more you try not to have intrusive thoughts, the more you're going to have them. More and more you try to get rid of intrusive thoughts, the more you're going to have them. The more welcoming you are to intrusive thoughts, less you're going to have them. The more welcoming you are to anxious sensations in the body, the less you experience them. It's this weird paradox that happens. Because what you begin to understand is our resistance to events or things in life is where the actual problem is, not the event themselves. And it's a misperception that causes us to then try to engage in all these safety behaviors. And this is why when you read all these people that teach on these topics of no attachments, no aversions, right? Like the secret to life, you know, in many ways, right, is this no attachments, no aversions kind of mentality. It's this flowing with what is that prevents suffering, because our attachment to what is and trying to make it stay that way, or our aversion to what is to try to make it not be that way, is actually what creates suffering. And so when you get attached to the idea of, I like my mind, you know, calm and quiet, and I like that there's just nothing going on, so I get attached to that, and I try to make that stay that way. The moment that a thought pops up that you don't like, you become adverse to it, or you have an aversion to it, and then that is what causes the behavior, right? That's what causes us to engage in the behaviors that then creates the suffering. And when you really begin to understand this, you understand that the most important work you can do is actually learning how to drop your resistance and how to be with what is. And yes, you need certain tools to do that. I'm not saying that you should just go try to do that on your own. It's like there's a reason that, you know, we have our 12-week program, is to really help people master these skills. Because these skills, if you really get this idea and you really understand what to do, and you can really be with yourself in your internal world, that is where true freedom lies, is in your ability to say, I can handle anything that's going on. Most of the cause of suffering is because people believe they don't have the ability to be within themselves and to handle what's going on in their own bodies and their own mind. And so their suffering comes from this escapism or all the things they're doing to try to stop that. So that's really the main message that I wanted to share today, and I hope it was helpful. And again, if you could please help us and like and subscribe, as well as leave a nice review on iTunes and Spotify, I would really appreciate it. And the main central point, again, just to take home, is this being able to differentiate pain versus suffering and understand what you need to do when things happen. And it's actually all the behaviors you're engaging in to try to avoid pain that's causing suffering, especially in the case of OCD and anxiety. So thank you so much. Wish you guys a great week, and I look forward to seeing you on the next episode. Hey there. So if you enjoyed that video, we've linked up a few more videos that we think you'd find helpful as well. And if you have found this helpful, we'd really appreciate your support by liking and subscribing. And if you're looking for help and guidance, please check out restoredminds.com, as we have several options for you to get started. See you guys soon.